Like if you're an employee, you're getting paid once or twice a month, right? And Uncle Sam's taking his cut out right away. As an entrepreneur, you can get paid multiple times a day. How was your Christmas, man?
So it was good. Just hung out with the family. Hung out with the family. Nephew was in town, so that was cool. I spent some time with him. Family's just everybody's growing, everybody's doing their thing. So it was cool. It was cool to be able to take a step back and not have to. This chair's so squeaky. It was cool to be able to sit back and not have to focus so much on work. I know initially that was where my mind was at, was trying to focus so much on, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. But when I finally just allowed myself to calm down, it was really cool, honestly. How about yours? How was it out there in Colombia?
It was pretty interesting, man. Took some time to kind of decompress, just read a lot. When I said read a lot, I mean read a lot. Like Ray Dalio's book, I almost finished that, and the new one that just came out, and really just did some skill building. So working on my trading skills. So Ray kind of enrolled me into she was like, babe, you get to create another ATM, and I was like, she enrolled me into it, and it's super simple. I kind of got it down. It's essentially doing vertical spreads and understanding levels and entry points and things like that in terms of intraday trading. And the concepts of it is essentially knowing when to get on the elevator and when to get off the elevator, and understanding how the price action is and relative to institutional investors are the ones who really move the prices, and their behavior patterns is very it's very clear,
predictable
on the chart of where these institutional people are buying. So that was a huge epiphany for me. And so I'm going to start I'm going to trade the S&P expire contracts Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays for 2 hours. Mondays, Wednesday, and Friday to collect a quick couple grand on the vertical spreads. I already have my risk tolerant. It's pretty interesting. So I was studying that hardcore, and then also reading Ray Dalio's book, The Changing World, over Christmas. And then I just got the podcast list back. So that's kind of my next endeavor. So listen to podcasts. But yeah, it was pretty chill, man. Always put it in. What's up with you, Heather? How was your Christmas?
Christmas was good. It was quiet. Lots of snow. Lots of freaking snow. I got a sick kid on the mend. Yeah. Not much.
You said that super aggressively. Lots of snow.
Lots of snow. Good fucking Christ.
Yeah,
the amount of snow is unprecedented. It's just ridiculous.
It's cool.
Inappropriate. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
What have you fools been up to?
Hustling. Today was
nice.
Today was a great day. It's I woke up
How
early.
good?
It was real good. Got a lot of good stuff done. Appreciate one of the alley-oops. That was great. Hopefully that should be secured hopefully in a couple of days. I should have answered in a couple of days. Got to do some other things for some other clients. So things are great. And, since we're going into the new year, everyone's talking about, the hype of plans and resolutions and all the things. And I don't know. I live by the 12-week philosophy, 12-week year, right? Every 12 weeks is a year, right? Every quarter is a year. But so today I wanted to hop in. This is a definitely a subject I'm super passionate about. I know, Heather, you're super passionate about it as well.
What?
And it's about embracing the savage mode.
Ooh.
and the evidence of savage mode, like down to like what are the digestible actions. I want to get into some books about the savage mode, like different, like just different little nuggets or hints and things that can help our audience today really embrace the savage mode, because we are in business and we're here to make a profit, and there's really no room. I mean, you could be a nice, I guess there's nice guys, right? This is, empathy is important, giving value is important, but I think it's, you have to choose to opt in and with a certain personality to like absolutely crush it. And so today I think we want to cover that. Is that fine with you, wonderful ladies and gentlemen? Is that okay that we dive into some savage mode discussions today?
Fuck
You guys
yes.
ready? Yeah, we might have to do part 2 because I got a lot to unpack today. So I guess we'll start here, which is I want to kind of bring this up to you guys of I guess create this visual representation for you out there listening or watching here today. And when we talk about savage mode, right? Like I want you to start thinking about a lion, right? Everyone loves to make comparisons of lion of success, things like that. And I heard Ray Lewis talk actually ironically this morning about he was giving a speech about why is a lion the king of the jungle, right? And it's not because it's the biggest, the fastest, or the smartest. It's the mentality, right? I think Miles Monroe talks about Dr. Miles Monroe talks about this a lot in terms of when a lion wakes up, it thinks lunch, right? It's ready to eat. It's ready to be alpha, be aggressive, to take what it wants, right? And when a gazelle, elephant, or hog wakes up, it thinks about running, right? It's always on alert to run from something, right? Where a lion is running towards something, it's moving sometimes methodically, it's being patient. It's very clear that it's attracted to something, not running away from, not repelling, right? And I think that's psychologically something important I want to unpack with you guys today. So, like, after hearing that little representation of savage mode, I'm pretty curious to kind of hear what you guys' take on savage mode and why it's important in business, why it's been important in your life. And if you got some stories you want to share, feel free to let the audience know. I think Josh is cueing you, Heather.
What is he cueing me for, though? Because my headphones cut out, so I did not hear what you said. You love this.
Wow, perfect timing.
I know, right?
So I'm just curious about like where do you see savage mode? Like, what is your, like, when you hear savage mode, like what's what comes up for you, right? Like, let's just start there, then we'll unpack into some like digestible things, later. But I'm super curious to kind of hear your mental modeling and your viewpoints of like what savage mode means in business.
Okay. I love it. Okay. So, honestly, like savage mode can mean a lot of different things. Like if you're either getting like aggressive in your risk taking, if you're getting aggressive in your hustle, if you're getting like really clear, really pinpointed in what you're going after next or knowing where you're going, that would be like, that's savage mode. Like, trying to find the right words for this.
It's almost like you're talking about like certainty, right? Like you're so certain and you're like, take a risk, right? Like certain, and you take the risk because you're so certain. You're more certain about what's on the other end of it than what's, the bad sides of it. If that makes sense. Like, I think like even if you have a 20% shot, you're like, I'm confident, I'm certain I can get it, even if I have a 20% chance.
Exactly.
Mm.
It has so much to do with like risk assessment. Savage mode has everything to do with like, not only are you assessing risk, are you assessing like placement? It has to do with being clear and being committed. Like that's what it is when it comes out. Now, where it comes from, that's a loaded question. That's a really loaded question, because savage mode, it doesn't always come from like want or desire. Sometimes it comes from need. Sometimes it comes from fear. It comes from a lot of different places. Like, but we would have to go into assessing everybody's why to cover like that piece of it.
Yeah. I want to stick to like create an experience for people to like do their own stuff, but like kind of give them like little hints and grasps. And I already know what I want to talk about specifically. But before we get into some easy digestible things, and one I want to definitely share with the audience something that we did, Heather. Like I feel like it was like the first thing we ever did, which was like dealing with time, right? And like not enough time. So I think that's relevant to Savage Mode, really relevant, and I'll explain why. But before we go there, let's hear from Josh. When you used to play football, man, right? When you was in college, playing college football, like explain like what does Savage Mode feel like, right? Like talk to me, talk to us about that, because you used to be a high performance athlete. So like let's get behind the curtain there, man.
That's it's a dark place, you know. I feel like every athlete has that. You have to have that savage mode in order for you to survive. I mean, it's really a kill or be killed mentality and environment. Most of the time it was rooted in, like I know Heather was talking about, going down to the why. I know, speaking for myself personally, I know a lot of other athletes as well, but like I said, just speaking for myself, my why was mainly driven behind anger and behind hatred and proving people wrong. So that savage mode came from, no one believed in me, or just creating stories in your head. No one believed in me. Like I'm doing this all by myself. Like F you mother effers. I'm out here on my own. Like you really think you can line up against me? Like I'm going to. Part of the savage mode is this. It's when it's kind of dark, but because you hear a lot of football players say this, a lot of boxers say this, a lot of MMA guys say this, where it's like the best feeling in the world. It's so hard to explain, but the best feeling in the world is when you can take another man's soul from him. Meaning like you've mentally screwed him up, you physically screwed him up so much where like you literally see him crumble like before you. You feel like almost like this, like it's ego, but it's tied. It's like this God complex. I know a lot of times when guys like David Goggins, Jocko Willink, like all them, they very much feed into that because you need that in the military. It's very similar to being on like a battlefield type of environment. So that savage mode comes from two things. It comes from hatred, it comes from anger, but it also comes from knowing the higher you go up the ranks, as far as high school to college and college to pros. You're essentially, it's getting more and more risky. So with that risk comes a different level of savage mode, because you realize that it's a business first. So with that business comes money, and with that money comes, not only are you trying to get paid and feed your family, but realizing that the coaches that are putting you on that field and that are coaching you up, the only way that they feed their families is by, wins and losses, right? As long as they win, hey, they keep their job. If they start losing, their families get essentially nothing. You're starving their family. And with that being the main mindset that a lot of pro athletes and college athletes and college coaches and pro coaches have, that's really one of the main things that drives the unit as a group. To where you see a lot of people not becoming friends anymore because of savage mode. You see a lot of people just focused on in essence, preying on someone's downfall, meaning in order for me to shine, you have to get hurt. So I don't want you to get hurt too bad, but I at least want you to, your hamstring to tweak a little bit so I can get back out there and actually show what I can do. So there's many different levels of savage mode when it comes to sports, but it really comes down to, for the majority of players, like an anger or a hatred as like the motivating factor that then allows you to impose your will on someone and not feeling any bit of remorse about it afterwards, just because of the environment that you're in. It praises that type of stuff. That's why you hit someone, you knock them out, then you stand over them, you like look at them like, yeah, it's like you're waiting for them to look up at you. It's like this it's so weird to explain, but when I think of savage mode, when I get to savage mode, I go to that point.
Beast mode. They start talking about that same concept is talked about in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
When people work out, it's like, oh, find your beast mode. Like it's finding that guttural empty to operate off of.
I think it's beautiful Like, yes, you want to create this rosy, beautiful world, right? Like you want to have great energy and you want to like be in alignment and all that. But like, I still believe that it's a blessing and it, like that you can dig deep, right? And use and transmute things that you're already feeling into the benefit of what you're trying to accomplish, right? Like, I know I used to operate like that early on where I was like, man, like I got to make it because I got to prove everyone wrong that I'm more than just a kid from nowhere, right? Like I could become an engineer. I can go sell $1 million. I could, I'm more than just this identity that I believe that society placed upon me, right? And using that, right? I think it's beautiful, man. I think it's, it's something that it's an advantage, right? That you can dig into that. Like, don't you guys agree?
I absolutely agree.
Man,
100%.
Understanding what that feels like and where it comes from is the difference between, I mean, it's a home court advantage. That's what it is. That's essentially in business and in life. It's what athletes call home court advantage. It's a type of confidence that you can't buy. You have to breed it.
It feeds that certainty that we talked about, right? Like, you know what? I'm going to attack this, even though I have a 20% chance, but I'm betting on myself that I have enough to make it, right? I'm betting on myself that I have enough resilience. I'm betting on myself that I'm going to take the life out of the problem that I'm solving, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh man, we're digging. So I definitely want to cover some things today regarding Savage Mode that I think is pretty relevant. And you guys can definitely add your own digestible actions and things like that. But 3 things that I really want to talk about, and specifically that I think that feed Savage Mode, because at the end of the day, cadence and momentum is so important. So important. Like what you do today, like you got to have enough delayed gratification to know that it might take 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, but you got to keep planting seeds every day. You got to keep watering every day. You got to keep cutting the weeds every day. Like you got to keep doing these things every single day in order for it to truly compound for results. Because at the end of the day, like let's think about it in business. Like if you're an employee, you're getting paid once or twice a month, right? And Uncle Sam's taking his cut out right away. As an entrepreneur, you can get paid multiple times a day. Multiple times a day. The velocity behind money is astronomically different, right? Because you can get paid multiple times a day, 30 to 31 days a month. And so to really like embody that, really understand that, I think there's 3 key things that feed Savage Mode: persistence, consistency, and skill building, right? I think those are 3 things as human beings that we all can control within our own internal world. Right. I'm not talking about networking or, investing into
I can get
something.
behind that.
Yeah, I'm talking about like 3 just things that you can control. Doesn't cost you any money, right? Because there's plenty of information on the internet to build skills, right? So when I talk about persistence, I'm talking about like rituals and philosophy, right? Like, what is your philosophy? Like, how do you what's the story you tell yourself about the problem that you want to solve, or what story are you telling about the arena that you're playing in? I think that's huge, right? Are you looking at it as like you're the David, you know what I mean? Like you're the small guy in this big arena and you're already defeated before you even get on the field, right? Like what's the story? Like what's your philosophy, right? Around everything, right? Like what is your philosophy? I think that's super important to do some philosophical work.
Right.
And then, yeah.
Okay. I mean, what's my philosophy? Josh, you get to start. We're gonna come up with the right words for this one.
What's my philosophy? I think I'm in the process of changing my philosophy, actually, because what served me before and my past identity no longer serves me now. I think the philosophy that I'm growing into now is that I mean, some people call them just like more of a mantra, but for me, my philosophy is that, how do I say this? That life happens for me, not to me, and that the score always takes care of itself as long as I'm doing my part. So just taking accountability for my life and knowing that, I'm the one at total fault or total, I don't say total praise, but at total responsibility, regardless of the outcome. And knowing that I'm going to be good regardless of whether I'm winning or whether I'm learning a lesson from that situation. That's more so what my philosophy has become as of lately.
Okay, I like that. So here's my life's philosophy, okay? So my life's philosophy is that don't ever do something. Don't ever put yourself in a position where you're doing something that is morally against your value system. No matter how hard up you are. I don't care what you're up to. I don't care how hard it may seem, but there is absolutely no excuse for putting yourself in a position where you're against your value system. Secondly, making money is not hard. It's just not. Being clear about what you want to get up to, being clear about where you are in life, about what you're doing, about where you're going and who you are, that's hard. Making money is not hard. So don't ever make it an excuse. And thirdly, always make it a trifecta. It's got to be a win for me, a win for you, and a win for the world.
Man, that's so money. I definitely see the third one you said, like a win for me, a win for you, one for world. Like you literally, I feel like you say that every time we talk, like to a certain degree. Like it always comes. It always.
I kind of do.
Yeah.
It's a cornerstone in how I make decisions. Like Josh and I were talking earlier, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you that I market for clients. Like I don't coach as much as I used to. I don't run a giant agency anymore. Like I coach really specific, very unique human beings in very unique situations for very specific reasons. Mostly because I shifted what I was focusing my time on. I mean, I'm doing a lot more in the software development world, in the crypto world, and it takes energy. But when I choose something, like my basis for making decisions has never changed. How I make my choices has never changed. It's always got to fit all of the slots. If it doesn't fit one, it's not a choice. It's just simply a non-option.
It's money. Man, yeah, that landed. I feel like the philosophy thing is really huge. Like specifically like with mental modeling, self-awareness, right? Like when you know yourself and you know what you believe in morally, right? And you have a very clear picture of how you view the world and what you want the world to look like. Even though you can't control it, but you have a very clear picture, like you're very certain where you fit in the world and what you want to ultimately accomplish. It makes like the creation phase that much more powerful because now you have a solid foundation to actually like build on. You can be really aggressive because your certainty level is really, really high. And so, just kind of, be super transparent. Like for me, like, I had went through humongous philosophical shifts where I recognized that I was running from something. And when I start running towards something, everything multiplied. Everything multiplied. And my curiosity deepened and things became way more easier. Right. And I won't forget this, Heather. I feel like one time, I think I had COVID in Ukraine at the time. I was out there for a contract. And he gave me this journal prompt that was like super powerful. And I actually used it sometimes when I, when I'm training or working with some people. The one where you said, I want you to, actually, I feel like Josh, you did this too, man. So I share this with you too. Are you running from something no, what about my come from, and where do I come from is the reason why I think this way, or something like that. It was like something where it's like digging into like what, like, yeah, what about my come from, and where I come from is the reason why, I view this certain problem, or I'm being, my way of being this way. And
your choice and solution is dependent upon your come from in the situation, and what that come from trigger. Like, what does that come from? Not necessarily what is it triggering, but what does that come from creating? It's creating a specific outcome. What is your come from? Why is that your come from? And what are you choosing? I believe that was the journal prompt.
Yeah. It was deep. It was a minute ago, but I was pulling out the hat when I'll look for it. In my Google Drive, I'll look for, I'm like, all right, this person needs to do this journal prompt, because I can empathize and I can feel it. And so when that philosophy is clear, right, and that self-awareness is high and that foundation is solid, now you can build rituals on top of to support those philosophies, right? Like, if you want to create win-win-wins for the world, if that's like a cornerport of your philosophy, you get to create rituals to nurture that philosophy that puts yourself in alignment. And so for me personally, some of my rituals is always learning, right? So reading, just being vulnerable enough to admit that I don't know it all, and learn from people who know something that I don't, and taking care of my body, and my, working out, and being committed to eating the frog early. So whatever the hardest thing of my day is, I'm gonna do it early, because I know I gotta eat the frog, right? So all the things I don't want to do, I do it first. So then that gives me a momentum for the rest of my day, right? Because that feeds my philosophy of growth and being the best version of myself, and to leave people better off than how I found them. And the only way I could do that within integrity is being in integrity with myself, by being a man of my word, right? Keeping my word, doing the things I hate doing, right? So I think that's super important. So let's talk about rituals. So what's some things, Josh, man, because I know you come from, the college athletes, you're creative, and you're in the agency world. I mean, what's some of your rituals that you protect that, really feed, really feed your soul, man? That's the savage mode.
As of lately, it's interesting. Like I said before, the philosophies, as my philosophy has changed, I've noticed that my rituals have changed as well. In some ways they hadn't over time. And I realized that there was a book I'm reading now, called Cybernetics. And it's really been healing for me in a way, because it's like my mindset for the longest time was like, especially switching over to entrepreneurship, has been like, man, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, you were so on point with your schedule, with your regimen every single day when it came to, sports, and school and everything else. But now it's like, you'll be in shell shock at times where you don't know what's going on. You wake up late, and you're eating the wrong foods, and you're just consuming the wrong type of media and content and stuff like that. So it's like you go down that crazy spiral. As of recently, I've learned that one ritual when it comes to savage mode or two rituals, I should say, that I've kept throughout my time playing sports, and also now, has been one, working out every day. Like, that's like my time of therapy, in a sense, to an extent. I mean, I'm big on therapy and mental health, but it's my way of being able to release whatever has been built up from the day, or the tension, whatever. And I actually have a lot of clarity in that, during that training session, where a lot of creative thoughts actually come to me in that moment. The second thing would be, reading every day, at least 10 pages a day, just ingesting some form of, good knowledge, that then allows that creative juice within my mind to, consistently flourish and continue moving forward and cultivating something long term. I'd say those are the two habits that I've definitely stuck with. Although like I said, I'm tweaking a couple of things here and there, along the path. But those are two things that I'm proud to say that has transformed me ever since I was an athlete. And I got to the point where I realized, hey, why is nobody in here reading a book? Why are we all playing video games or talking about girls or stupid stuff, party, function this weekend or whatever? Like, nobody's picking up a book. So when I finally started doing that, it completely changed my life. And ever since then, it's haven't looked back. So I say those are the two biggest things that I've stuck with so far.
Well, see, like that's dope. That's personally. And I think that, like, I'm glad we talked about that because I know, Heather, you're a huge reader. Like, you read a ton. Actually, the first original idea of the podcast was going to be a book club where we just talk about books because we're huge nerds in reading. But I think that in terms of to keep it in context for the audience, I think persistence is key with rituals that support your persistence is key in business as well, right? Like picking up that phone and following up with that person and scheduling it in and being persistent in doing it, even if you don't want to do it, even if it's more about the 15 minutes a day. It's better than doing it for 4 hours one day, right? The persistence, the cadence is more and more important, right? Firing that person that is not in alignment with your vision, right? It can be a client or it can be a person internally, right? So just like having that persistence in business and like having rituals that feed that persistence, right? I hear a ton of success stories around entrepreneurs. Obviously, like no one's overnight success. Like they're a combination of like a bunch of actions consistently every single day that happen to get noticed overnight, right? And a lot of it comes down to like, particularly just use, for example, social media, like where people post 2 times a day, right? So like, for instance, on this podcast, one of the things I care about most, two things. One is over delivering value. And the second thing is, Kit, I hope you're watching this, but Kit being our accountability in terms of helping us make sure that we're persistent in delivering value to the marketplace multiple times a day from multiple different ways, right? Like being persistent and creating a ritual around that where we're consistent, right? Where we stay in the game, keep in the game. So, I really wanted to share that with you guys here today because I think it's super important that you guys create rituals around your business to keep you persistent, understand your philosophy while you're doing things. And this obviously leads into our second segment of this topic in Savage Mode, which is consistency. And I would love for Heather to come on because she did this exercise with me, actually. It's not uncommon, but it was pretty interesting in terms of like time auditing. So like, Heather, I'd love for you to like kind of unpack that a little bit in terms of like the importance of like understanding time in regarding to being consistent and like understanding your energy and just being really mindful of like, where energy goes, where attention goes, energy flows, right? So pretty interested to kind of hear you unpack that a little bit for the audience. So super impactful.
Okay. Well, I mean, yes, where attention goes, where your energy flows, like absolutely. And which exercise are you talking about? Like auditing your time?
Yeah. Remember the whole like write down everything? Yeah.
Yep. I wanted to make sure you're going down the right rabbit hole. It's like, I could take this in so many different directions right now. There's one I'm getting ready to put you through, as a matter of fact, that you're going to love someday. But so like you break it down, like there's 24 hours in a day. So back in the Stone Age, where, the wheel had just been invented and fire was still like kind of a new concept. I was in college, right? And I took a 102A reality and knowledge philosophy class. Okay, as one of my elective classes. I think, God, my second year. It's like my second year in college. Needless to say, I had this professor break down the concept of time to me so blatantly that it was impossible to ignore it. He broke down the 24 hours you have in a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and made it very clear that not only could you spend 8 full hours at work, 8 full hours a day sleeping, and 8 full hours a day at school, but you had plenty of time. He built out a schedule where for someone who had a social life that was twice the size of mine, and all I could do was stand there and stare. And at the end of it, he asked everybody to take a minute, think about it, but you were to write a 1-page essay on what did this exercise trigger for you? What did you learn? And what are you most shameful or guilty of? And at the end of that class, I was still standing there staring at the board, like just dumbstruck. And he goes, "What's going on for you?" I said, "Well, I don't know if I'll ever have enough stuff to fill up something like that. But I swear to God, I always feel like I'm out of time." And he smiled at me and he said, time is infinite as long as you choose to use it wisely. So what part of your life are you not being wise in? And I went, I'll get back to you. I wrote a 15-page paper and did a case study on my own for no other reason that I wanted to figure it out during that semester. I ended up going back 4 years later, and I did my graduate student teaching that class and ethics and values. Mind you, my graduate degree was in art, so nothing to do with what we were up to at all. But I decided to go back and teach with him because I was still so fascinated at the concept of time. And it was at that point where I realized like time really is infinite. Like the lens in which I see the world has everything to do with the fact that time is an infinite concept. Should you choose to let it be? Now, the exercise that I took Desmond through that he is so desperately wants me to break down is, what do you do with your time? Because where your energy goes, like where you put energy, where you put time, where you put focus, everything will flow through that. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, simply dispersed. So where you put it matters. And I had him for, did I make you do 2 days or 5?
In terms of how much time I had to do it, or how many days?
How many days in a row did I make you do it?
It was like
2. Yeah.
2.
So for 2 days, you the increments, like you have to break it down to 2 minutes or more. But what do you spend your time on from start to finish, from the moment you open your eyes to the moment that you close them? What are you doing with your time? Write it down. If you spend 5 minutes scrolling on social media, write it down. There's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. There's no win. There's no loss. But at the end of it, you sit there and you look at that, and you will see exactly what you do with your time. And you'll be shocked at how much of it we waste as humans. I can guarantee you I wasted a minimum of 3 hours this morning goofing off looking at dog doors. Oh yeah, dog doors. You just buy one. They're all the same. 3 hours. Precious. Now, I have the right to spend 3 hours looking at dog doors because I've set my life up to be. But it's
lost
simple.
you there. Repeat that.
What do you mean? Oh, repeat it. I said I have the right to do that. Like in my life, I've set myself up very specifically to be able to include things like that being in my schedule. I'm aware that I will dump 5 hours of research time into Christmas lights because I only do things once. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be buying a washer and dryer, which I did an extensive amount of research on when I bought my first one. Or it could be whether or not to hire a coach or put out an ad, or, reviewing KPIs. Like I put the same type of energy into everything. So I've set my schedule, my days, my life up to be conducive to how I operate. So spending 3 hours looking at dog doors doesn't hurt my day. It's already built into it because I'm effective and I'm aware of my time. And that's what the exercise kind of teaches everybody. Desmond, what was your experience?
I was going to say, I feel like it's always been evolving, like in terms of like, oh, okay. I just, like for instance, I get really fired up doing coaching, like training calls, right? Like doing Q&As or something, right? And that energy transmute into sales calls. So I like to do training calls before I do sales calls because it fires me up, it fills me up, and it makes me like, so just like kind of understanding my energy levels and like always adjusting. And then like, for me, I even took it a step further and I do briefs every freaking day. So like I take time every freaking Sunday to look at my calendar and write out on a Notion page everything I've scheduled that day. And I write, why am I doing this day? Right. And even tasks, and even put tasks at the top of things like I plan to do that day in terms of send out this contract or pay this invoice or send this invoice. And like, I just like keep everything on a pack of that keep me focused. And it helped me understand like, how am I really utilizing my time? And at the end of the day, I look at that Notion page, I put on my recaps on there, and I ask myself, did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish today? And not even attached, and there's not even talking about the results of collecting a certain amount of money, not even attached to nothing. Just like, did I do what I said I was going to do today? Because I think follow through is also important in this, Heather. Right? Even though you put it on the calendar, does it? Because I used to put shit on my calendar all the time, but I didn't. Like sometimes I don't do it. Reach out to these people, but did I do it? It was on the calendar, but did I do it? And like having that accountability with yourself is key. And if you didn't do it, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Right.
I mean, honestly, like accountability is huge, but it comes right back down to how you do one thing is how you do everything, and how you handle any one thing is how you handle anything. So what do you do? Like, if I could tell people to do anything, like look at how you handle things in crisis. Look at chaos. Look at the most chaotic part of your life, or most recent chaos moment in your life. How did you handle it? What did you do to get from A to B? That's what we call our bare minimum operating points. How we operate in crisis is literally like, that's how you exist. Now you can add anything on top of that. It can build exponentially depending on how much you're willing to commit to. But that's simply a choice. But how we do any one thing is how we do everything. Like my calendar today, I had 3 phone calls, 2 team meetings, and this. That's it. There's nothing else on my calendar. I have built 2 pieces of furniture. I got into a bidding war. I researched and bought a dog door. I also went to the vet twice, ran errands, planned dinner, and talked to one of my really good friends from Texas. But what I had set out to do, what I committed to, my non-negotiables, they happen regardless. Doesn't matter how sick I am. Doesn't matter if I'm hungover. Doesn't matter if I had a bad day. Doesn't matter if my feelings are hurt. Doesn't matter if I woke up late, because I do that constantly. Oh my God. Terrible at waking up. Doesn't matter. Everything happens in the order that it's set out to happen, no matter what. It's a non-negotiable factor. Talk about rich. Like, that it's like breathing or eating or sleeping. You can't go without food and water. And you can't go without the right rituals in your life. If you don't know how to set them, you need to learn. But like, my rituals are as non-negotiable as breathing, no matter what's going on around me.
I love it. I'm like fired up right now. So you got through persistent, right? Rituals, philosophy, consistency, understanding your time, auditing your time, holding yourself accountable, journaling, right? These are little basic things, but they compound, guys. They for sure compound. And the last thing I think is important is skill building that feeds savage mode, right? Like, Josh, when you're as a college athlete, what do you do more than anything? What do you do? Do you play the game or do you practice more? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Can.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. You practice a lot more than you play.
Isn't that crazy? Right? Even in business, like Heather just said, like Heather's running like all these different businesses, right? But she practiced so much more than like even when she's playing, she's practicing, right? Even for myself, right? Like I feel like I'm learning. If I'm not working, I'm learning, right? Or I'm enjoying myself, having fun, right? Like I am learning as much as I am working. I spent Christmas reading books and watching courses, bro. Like I had fun. Like it was fun. Like I was having a blast, right? And so I think it, like being an entrepreneur, like if you're not growing, you're obviously diminishing. And if you're not like, if you don't have $1 billion company right now, or it doesn't matter if you don't have $1 million company, like there's always room for improvement. And that value that you're learning can be reinvested in your business. And most importantly, reinvested in the people that you're trying to give value to, right? Because the better you are, the better their experience will be, right? So I think skill building is super, super important. So like, I really want to unpack this a little bit in terms of like, what were some moments, in your professional life, even can be personal as well in terms of personal development or personal epiphanies, but like, what were some big skill building? Like, what was your hero's journey of like, you're like, I'm going to learn this one thing. You learned it and it resulted in X, result in your life. I'm really curious to kind of hear a hero's journey from you guys of like a story of you learning a skill. And Heather, you probably have a shit ton, but a certain story, because she's like all types of crazy shit, man. Really interested to kind of hear your hero's journey. I'm being super blunt and real about like what skills you guys learned. So who wants to go first?
How about you start by telling us yours?
Oh man, okay. I think my hero's journey that's super related to today was learning how to sell. I think that was important because I've had an interesting journey with that, because I started off, I sucked. I was an engineer, chemical engineer in college, and I hated being in labs. And because I used to do stuff from like NASA, Department of Defense, and like private industry, like I was really involved in research. And I just realized like I hated it. And I was like, man, I got to do something different. And a bunch of my homies was like, yo, you want to come to Texas and knock on some doors with us door to door? And I turned down like a super lucrative internship in Seattle to go knock on doors with the homies to learn how like to kind of like figure out, do I want to do sales or not? And I did it in hot Texas heat. My black ass was out there knocking on doors, pounding pavement, and I ate shit. I'm talking about I sucked so bad I couldn't sell fucking salt to a potato chip, right? It was that bad. And what drew me in was the fact that seeing this one guy, our boss, get into all these houses, these strangers, you sitting at their kitchen table in the middle of the day, 2 hours in, and they sign a $7,000, $10,000 contract, right? And you walk out. I just thought it was so fascinating, the level of persuasion and the amount of connection. And I yearned for it. I was like, man, it was so cool. And so I ate shit. I got fired in the car. I'll never forget that. I was in the car with the dude. He was like, I got some good and bad news, Desmond. Bad news is we're going to have to let you go. I had no money. I'm straight into Texas, Ohio. Texas, Ohio, but Dallas, Texas at the time. Then I called my dad and I'm like, yo, I failed, right? That was tough for me to swallow. Like, yo, Pops, I didn't take this engineering job that you told me to take and I ate shit. I need to come home. And I decided to stay actually in Texas and just really reflect on this summer with some family members. And I went back to school that fall, and I knew that I wanted to be in sales because I wanted to go back and I wanted to I knew it was for me, right? Like I was like, man, I sucked, but I was so curious to get better and I wanted to get better. And so I made a decision that I'm going to finish my engineering degree because I'm already 3 years in. I need to finish and prove to my little brothers and sisters that they have to finish what they start. And I'm going to become a salesperson. So then I took a $30,000, $40,000 pay cut in engineering to be an intern in a corporate company. And I was super aggressive because I knew that was what I want to do. And I was willing to I was like, well, the worst thing that can happen, I'll just be in a lab, right? Worst come to worst, I'll fail again and I'll be in a lab. I already failed that one time that summer. So I was like, I knew what failure tasted like and I didn't want to experience that again. And that's when I became ultra aggressive. And I didn't ask for permission, I asked for forgiveness. And I think that's another key point. I was like, I'm gonna go collect the bag. And if they want to fire me for collecting money for the company, then they just got to fire me. Right. I'm willing to get fired to be successful. Like that was it sounds super crazy, but that was the savage mode, guys. This is real life savage mode coming out on the pod. But I was like, you're gonna fire me, man. I'm gonna collect this money. You're not gonna stop me from collecting the money, man. You're not gonna stop me from solving people's problems. You're not gonna stop me from reaching out to people because I'm willing to fail. Because I know what that felt like. And that's how I kind of grew my roots. And I was a super sponge, right? I think the biggest thing I learned on that journey, the first thing I read that changed my paradigm, that really projected me into really to the person I am today, was Simon Sinek Start With Why talk, with really understanding people don't care about what you do or how you do it, but why you're doing it. And that was the difference between Apple and Android, and that fascinated with me. So I use that approach a lot in my sales, right? It's starting with why, understanding people and what I represented and what I wanted to do, which was I want to solve your problem. I don't care how I do it. I don't care what I do. I don't care if I sell you freaking screws. If that screw is the reason why your job site is held up on this project, then I'll get you some damn screws for $2. I was willing to do anything. $2, $2 million, $30, it didn't matter, right? And yeah, so that was my hero journey in building the skill, and it just kept compounding. And doing NOP, doing personal development, doing high ticket sales, just realizing like the patterns in sales, like really helped me become, which I believe is I am, if not the best, I am one of the best salespeople on the freaking planet right now. I believe it in the bottom of my heart, right? Because I'm willing to fail and I'm willing to go to the limit for the people that I want to create impact for, create value for. So that was my skill building journey. And I got away from it for about a year. I tried to do something different, and I just gravitated back to sales because that's just like, making money and revenue is just what I like to do. Right? Like it's easy. It's my zone of genius. So that was my skill building hero's journey. Hopefully that resonated with someone out there today. So just don't give up, guys. Right? Like if you fail, that's like, if you're curious to know why you failed, that's a sign that you're on the right track and you should give it another whirl. Like don't give up after the first failure. So there's my hero's journey, guys.
Desmond, I so appreciate you. So I'm only gonna play devil's advocate just a little bit. Was it really failure?
I guess you could say it was a learning experience, but I took it as like I did not succeed. Right?
Okay.
I got
not
fired.
Succeeding and failing are totally different.
I mean, at the time,
about that.
Yeah, at the time I was like, man, I turned down so much money to make no money and be embarrassed. Like all my friends from college,
there it is.
All my parents, right? My professors. Here I am, all the people that I was like, I felt embarrassed to get told no over and over again, to be let go, to be stranded, to be, I felt embarrassed. I was like naked. I was like, shit. Like I was like exposed. I felt exposed. So I guess
there we go.
Right.
That I can buy. That I will absolutely buy. But failure, I'm a firm believer that it does not exist. It is simply knowledge. Everything in life is a series. It's all a series of knowledge. They're learning points. So there are things that are ultra successful and there are things that are less than successful. Effective or not effective. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's not the action itself. Like the action's super perfect. The timing super sucks. But it's a choice. It's simply learning. So if you're always learning, like I did this and I got this result. I did that and I got this result. This happened and it caused that. That happened and it caused this. Knowledge. The acquisition of knowledge is the difference between effective and ineffective conquest. Oh, and by the way, I don't have a hero's journey at all. I also don't have a story. Every entrepreneur, oh God, I've talked about this at length, so many different directions, but entrepreneurs have that, like the broken to fixed, rags to riches, that aha moment story. I don't have one. I never have. I learned that I couldn't work for somebody else, so I didn't. My first business came to be by accident. It was just a happenstance moment. I didn't build a business on purpose. I kind of fell into it, and I failed miserably a couple of times. For what it's worth, like I had 2 companies go under that I had to walk away from, but it didn't. I don't have I learned something or I acquired something. Like I was really clear on the fact that I was always kind of a jack of all trades. I never had my little brother started high school very clear on exactly what college he was going to go to, what he was going to go to school for, how long it was going to take him, and where he was going to work afterwards. And I debated on going to college after high school because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do next. I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I did some traveling. I did some things. Like, I guess this is next, right? This is next on the list. Okay, got it. I'll go do that. I went to college because that's what I was supposed to do. My first 2 degrees have absolutely nothing to do with the person that I am. Not one small thing. Like, I studied international business as a theory and got a degree in philosophy. My bachelor's is in philosophy. Tell me exactly what you're supposed to do with that. A plus nothing, unless you want to teach. And I learned really, really quickly that I did not want to teach. I think college students are awful, nasty little mouth breathers. Yep. Yep. Josh is laughing. No, I was like, yeah.
You did that degrees for the pod today, for today's episode. Like that was it.
That was for you. Honestly, like, and it's funny because I never wanted to teach. And yet, look at what I do now.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said I never wanted to teach, but look at what I do now. I teach. Interesting, huh? Go for it, Josh. Get on here.
I just didn't want to cut you off. You know, gotta pay respect. So, yeah, that's actually very interesting, though. It's very common, though, that the very thing that you don't like doing the most is the thing that ultimately is tied into your purpose. At least from personal experience, that's some wisdom that I've gathered along the journey.
It's good wisdom. I mean, it really truly is. Like, I never had any desire to teach, especially in the educational field. Like, I learned really quickly that it didn't matter how much money somebody was paying to be there. Like, you can't buy focus. You can't buy somebody's attention. If they don't want to pay attention, they won't. And that was the turnoff point for me in teaching, is a lot of college students aren't there because they want to be. They're there because they have to be, or they were told to be. And I'm not bought on that. Exited the idea of teaching very quickly. Like a hard right, and was like, I'm going to go do what I know I'm good at. Now, I did 9 years in the military. I worked in the weapons field, and I had an absolute blast traveling. But that was, I went into the military to learn how to be an adult. I don't have a crazy broken home story. I don't have a sob story. I was raised in a white picket fence family with a mom that did bake sales and PTA. My dad taught me how to dance, how to turn a wrench, how to defend myself, and never to take no for an answer. So everybody's like, oh, like, what's your story? I'm like, no, there's no story. Like, I cruised through the first 10 years of being an adult, and I did it in the military because the military gives you structure. It was the safest, most effective place for me to be a human being. Because no, my mommy didn't teach me how to do my laundry. She just did it for me. I didn't learn how to cook. I didn't know how to iron. My God, the things that I didn't do. I spent my time turning a wrench, building cars, being creative, and doing life when I was younger. And I was very blessed to be able to do so because I had the right kind of support around me to just be weird little me. And so the next answer was the military. It was, okay, so now you need life skills. Go get some of them life skills. And I did that. And I went to college while I was active duty because they told me that was next on the list. I got a couple of degrees, got kind of bored, got a couple more degrees right as I was getting out, got kind of bored again. Now I have a bachelor's in English and a minor in art history and a bachelor's in philosophy with a minor in international business theory. None of those things are useful all on their own. They're all nice little onesies. And I took a couple of years off. I moved to Southern California. The only big kid job I ever took was I started with Wells Fargo during the Bear Stearns acquisition and got acquired by JP Morgan when they did the JP Morgan Chase acquisition. But my strength was puzzles. I was really, really good at looking at how something worked or how something could be put together and solving that there's no way this will work. I'm like, oh, it could go this way. Like you just have to take 2 extra lefts right back there. 2 extra lefts, you're good to go. But I never learned a specific skill. Technology came naturally to me. So I definitely honed that skill. I fed it a lot. I stayed in the tech world for a really long time because it makes sense. It's a checks and balances. It solves the puzzle. And it allowed me to grow in areas where most people just simply don't know how to create proficiency. And I used that and I stacked it and I stacked it and I stacked it. And slowly but surely, I went from building solutions to designing solutions to thinking up and creating solutions to teaching people how to think up and create solutions. It's kind of it.
We all have hero's journey, so I'm not gonna
say it sounds like that's a hero's journey to me.
It sounds like whatever story you got on hero's journey.
It's a good journey. I have a good journey, but it's not I needed X to get to Y.
You didn't sleep in any subway bathrooms? You didn't sleep in your car?
I've never been homeless. I've never slept in subway bathrooms. I've never been, I can honestly tell you that I do not understand what it would feel like to go without. I'm not a spoiled child. My parents were middle to lower middle income, blue collar family, but I didn't know that we were poor until I was in high school. Like my parents they're just smart people. They knew how to make it work. Like we lived within our means, but I never went without anything. Money was never a focus. I never understood like the social financial hierarchy. I was a creative, strange, very hyperactive child. So you gotta remember, like there was a lot of things I didn't pay attention to, period. But it wasn't until a kid, we lived on the edge of a really, really nice neighborhood. I just sold that house like 6 months ago, but we lived on the edge of a really nice neighborhood right next to a really beautiful golf course. So I went to a really good school, but I went to school with a lot of really fucking rich kids. And I didn't notice it until I was 15 years old and we were getting driver's licenses. One of the kids I went to school with came to school in a new Porsche. I'd never seen a Porsche before. Mind you, we're in Boise, Idaho. It's not like Porsches are everywhere. This is not California. So I'd never seen a Porsche. And I was like, I want one of those. So I brought it up at dinner. I sat down at the table and I expected my dad to sit down and go, okay, well, how are we going to get there? Because we made a plan. Every time I ever wanted something, you want a bike, you wanted this, you need a car part, you want whatever it was like, okay, well, let's sit down. Tell me what, tell me why. Let's make a plan. And it was make an execution plan. And then I had to hold up my end of the bargain. There was never, no was not a part of our household. It was, how are you going to get there? Great, let's solve the problem. It was never no, you can't, or yes, you can. And so I was like, I want a Porsche. My dad was like, okay, what? And we need to talk. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, why do you want $100,000 car? And I was like, what? That thing's what? I was shocked by how much it was. I was like, it lost almost all of its perceived value in my mind the moment I knew how much it costed. Oh. I still, this day, have never owned a Porsche. I don't ever want to either. But it was like, that was my first lesson, like true lesson in like the exchange value of money. Like to get X, you have to have Y. And I mean, I've never gone without. I work my ass off. I have always put in, like I've always put in what I call the hard day's work. I've never just not done something, but I've also never not had what I wanted. If I wanted it bad enough, there's a plan. You put a plan in place and you just go fucking execute it. Like, that's how I was taught from a very small age. Like, if you wanted something, okay, great. What are the 6 steps to get there? Okay, when are you going to do them by? The what by when concept, my parents raised us that way. How many times are you going to mow the lawn? What day are you going to do it? What time are you going to do it? Great. You get $5 each time. Okay, how many weeks is it going to take you to get the fucking bike? It take me 16 weeks. Are there 16 weeks in summer? Nope. Gonna start doing it now. I mowed the lawn in the mornings before school. The year that I wanted a new motorcycle. Mind you, I'm really terrible at mowing lawns. Just in case anybody wonders, my dad mowed behind me. It was hilarious. But I committed to doing it, said I would, put my 100% effort in, and I mowed the lawn. And after I would leave for school, my dad would come home on his lunch break and remow the lawn because it looked fucking horrible. But it was about commitment. Like, commitment is something that I was bred with. We were bred and raised in commitment and consistency. But I come from a military family. Those are givens. You have to. Not a want to, that's a have to. So I don't see a hero's journey in some of this. Like, this is the way I think life's supposed to look. There's no special circumstance to it.
Wow. Feather Unchained. I love it. Yeah, that was that. I think the biggest takeaway I got from what you just said was creating a plan and executing. Like getting a bike, getting a client, right? Reaching a certain goal, like put a plan together and just put your nose to the pavement and get it done. Like that's dope.
Yep.
Yeah. Execution.
Yep. It's always about execution.
So I want to end up with the episode on couple minutes on crypto, like always, right? Just a quick, because hey, audience, we get to keep getting you informed, awareness, and maybe our own mental modeling, what's out there, some tips and tools, because it's super important to, as Wayne Gretzky always says, hit where the puck is going, right? Hit where the puck is going. Be in alignment and be in flow. And so today I wanted to kind of touch up a little bit of an interesting topic in crypto, which is being a crypto contrarian, right? Being a contrarian, doing things that is, I would say, different from the herd, right? So to speak, right? Back in the early days, we had in 1999, I bet Heather thinks she was, pretty old still then, because I'm joking, but
you be careful.
When people when email first came out, right? And people are like, what, you're gonna send me information on email? You're not gonna fax it to me, or you're not gonna mail it to me, you're gonna send it through a computer? What? You're gonna send it in the waves, right? And I think we're in that kind of moment right now in the crypto space. So I'm pretty interested to kind of hear your guys' contrarian take on crypto in terms of, things that sound ludicrous now may not sound ludicrous in 10 years, right? It might be like, whoa, why haven't we done this sooner, right? So I'm pretty interested kind of like what like applications, like not specific particular projects, but maybe some use cases or some things that you see in the technology that right now it's hard to wrap your head around, but would be like part of everyday life in about 5 or 10 years. So I'm pretty interested to kind of hear you guys' contrarian take today on crypto, on some type of use case or application use that you guys seeing being used for.
Josh, you get to start.
Honestly, I'm still diving more into this stuff. I feel like I've been keeping it basic when it comes to crypto and just understanding everything surrounding it, especially with like NFTs and all that. That's really, to answer your question, I feel like that would be the biggest thing for me right now is still understanding how we can still be, I guess what I'm wrapping my head around is how we can still stay decentralized while at the same time knowing that the big institutions are the ones that are actually, coming in with crypto, infiltrating the system. So it's like, how do we keep it where they're not in control of things, but they can still have a part to play in the grand scheme of all this stuff and what we're doing, because they are holding large portions of whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, what have you. So that's my biggest thing right now. And then besides that, I'd say just NFTs, seeing how within the communities that are being built, excuse me, how it serves the bigger purpose of the grand scheme of things, of transactions being made on these platforms and stuff. Because some of the stuff I'm hearing from just different podcasts and stuff, it's still wrapping my head around it. Like it's to the point where I've gone from being a beginner to I'm still a beginner, but I'm in listening to conversations that are like so beyond me. I'm like, okay, let me actually slow that. Let me slow down the playback speed so I can actually really digest what it is that you're saying. So I feel like I'm a novice right now in what I'm seeing a lot of people coming up with, as far as like ways that, excuse me, I'm trying not to cough, but ways that I see crypto and NFTs, really taking off from where we're at right now. Because I'm already a believer. I was skeptical years ago, back in like 2013, when people kept talking about it. It's, oh, that's just a fad. It's gonna fade. Knowing that the fact that it's been here all this time, it's already. I'm a believer at this point. So from here, it's a matter of being able to see how it's actually going to sustain itself in the ways that I can understand conceptually how, within it, not just building communities, but the different transactions. And like, I'm still trying to understand to a certain extent, like, gas fees. I'm like, why is it got to be called gas fees? Why don't we call it something else? So there's a lot that I realize that I get to learn in this space, but more intrigued every day just based off all the stuff that I'm seeing, and also within these runs right now that we're seeing right now, right? With they're saying like an altcoin bull market about to take off pretty soon, because so much has been dumped into Bitcoin that a lot of people are saying that they don't think Bitcoin is actually going to sustain itself for too much longer. So people are going to start dumping money from there and back into the altcoins, and then back, vice versa within the whole the full cycle of things. So there's a lot. So I guess long story short, there's a lot that I'm still learning and I'm still curious about learning. But they definitely wrap up within the sustainability of NFTs and the way we handle transactions and stuff like that within these different cryptocurrencies.
I love it. I mean, Contrarian, like, just like anything else, like crypto is simply something new. I mean, when the internet came to be, when the computer came to be, when marketing came to be, when influence marketing came to be, when you could when you started being able to buy ad space on websites, and like, it's just new. And some people naturally onboard, and some people don't. And there's the learning space, like the headspace that it's in, it's curious, because while Josh, I totally agree, there are some of your major corporations, or they own what we call large quantity. At no point in the decentralized world have any of those large companies own majority. The catch on decentralization is that the majority is always held by the single humans. That's how it's been built. That's how people have been operating. And it's the piece that makes it all different. It's what makes it different from traditional banking, from traditional communication, from traditional community, is that there are hundreds of thousands of single use cases. Well, you add them all together, and what do you get? Once you add them all together, you have this giant use case. It's like, well, no, the majority is actually run by the population. And that's, I mean, effectively, like, crypto will stay effective if it stays that way. And it will become massively ineffective if it doesn't.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's just a mindset shift for myself because when I'm every day when I'm like looking up MSNBC or like I'm sorry, MSNBC, CNBC, or Bloomberg, and it's like you're hearing all these stories about like, oh, this company and that company, bought, this amount of Bitcoin or what have you. It's after a certain point, the way my mind processes is like, man, that's a lot of that's a lot of Bitcoin that they're capturing, or like Tesla, for instance, when it was going through that whole thing of Elon Musk and all the and Tesla own this majority of Bitcoin, and then it was Doge for a minute, and then it was something else. After a while, my mindset goes to, oh my God, they're holding so much that at what point are they going to take over, rather than still, like you said, the main thing being the main thing, where it's they're never going to be at a place where they will control the majority. So I think part of that is just a shift on my from my perspective on just seeing the grand scheme of all this stuff and how every joint supplies within the grand scheme of this entire cycle or engine.
Yeah, I think this is good stuff because there's so many different use cases, and we're going to definitely unpack a few different ones in later episodes. But I think the one for me, I guess the first moment I had with crypto, I had a lot of different moments, but the first moment where I was like, all right, I need a different solution personally was when I sent an invoice to a client, they paid it, and the third party person who processed my invoice held the money. They held the money, they take a fee, and let's say in the traditional aspect, I have to wait a few days to get to receive that money. So like the speed behind money in business is all about like how fast can you get money before you have to let it out, right? In terms of like cash flow and really like scaling and growing your business, right? And so for me, I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, I'm not even gonna say their name, but this company is holding my money, and I got to like jump through hoops, jump on phone to get money, right? I was pissed, right? I felt like I was being stolen from. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, I get it. I get why blockchain's sick, because I don't need someone else to give me permission for me to collect the bag that someone already agreed to give me, right? Why do I need a third party person to do that, right? And then on top of that, I think what blows my mind, which I get it in terms of like, if you understand like the petrodollar and US policy and fiscal policy, central banks and all of that, like I get why you have a reserve currency, right? The Netherlands, the Dutch were the first persons to, really have the first reserve currency of the world with regards to capitalism, right? Like I get it, right? It's easy to transact, to do business internationally, but I believe that was needed in that portion before technology exists. And I believe that where we're going right now, right, the new standard is going to be some type of form of blockchain. Who knows if I see governments adopting it, right? Because once you try to suppress something, it actually fuels it, right? We can count on many times in history where governments try to ban something and it just goes underground, or people flee somewhere where they're able to participate in it. Like banning doesn't do anything; it actually does the opposite of what they wanted to do. But so I see it happening where the actual technology, the blockchain, is going to actually be integrated within on a higher institutional level within governments, where we don't have to wait 3 days to get a payment, right? We don't have to pay a $25 wire transfer fee, right? Like it just be, pretty instant. So I'm hoping for that. That's my contrarian view in terms of the use case, in terms of like getting your money faster. I think that's super important, and not letting someone take a big chunk or asking permission to secure the bag, so to speak. So that's my take, and I'm pretty fired up about it because I'll never forget when they took my money. Like I was so pissed. Still haven't gotten the money back. It's ridiculous. Yeah, today was a fun episode. We talked about Savage Mode today. Got to really unpack that. So I want to thank you guys for making it to the end of the episode. If you want to be on the show, feel free to go to campfirecapitalism.com, make a request. We'll love to play with you in the sandbox. Start looking out for some guests coming up in the next few episodes. We'll play with some other entrepreneurs here on the show. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and let us know what your thoughts in the comment section and what you think this episode's all about. So thanks, guys. And like always, it's great. Bye.